There are some units that are so core, you should basically never have a build without at least one of them. Trollhammer Torpedoes are one of those units, especially for the Dwarfs, being that they almost completely lack mobility. Hey guys, Dov here today. I'm playing the Dwarfs, which I don't often do, and I'm up against Zach Waite. Wanted to practice his Lizardmen against my Dwarfs, so let's talk about builds here quickly. Got Grombrindle, the White Dwarf, leading the way, Master Engineer. I'm definitely a big fan of these guys since making a video about them. Been trying them out a bit, and they are very effective. 2 Corlers for some support fire in case he brings Pterodons, which he did, and you can see just a quick note about target priority. I am targeting the cannon directly on the Pterodons. You might think to be shooting these Kroxigors, of which he has a few, or perhaps the Feral Bastillodon, perhaps this Kroxigor Ancient, but in fact, because it's very important that I protect the Gyro Bomber here, you can see I'm using the Gyro Bomber's main gun and also counter-firing with the Quarrelers there. But yeah, the cannons, all of that is being focused on the Pterodons. I've got some, ROR Dwarf Warriors, whereas Dragonfire Pass, Miners up front, Slayers in the back, protecting the cannon here. There's Skinks and Saurus, and one quick point of coaching to Zach, because I know he is going to watch this, and yeah, definitely always looking to learn. One thing, and just in general for Lizardmen players, when you're leading with your Saurus like this, you want to try and not take the blasting charges directly on them. They're not going to take as much damage as a lower armor unit would. I mean, 60 armor is okay, but in this type of a situation, you might even want to lead with the Bastillodons because they're the cheapest. Yes, they're your Terra units, and they would be potentially subject to handgun fire, like these Trollhammer Torpedoes parked right here, but eating the blasting charges on the 140 armor of the Feral Stegodon or on the Kroxigors, you know, because I can either leave them on fire at will, or if I take them off fire at will and then manually target, I might even get charged by the Bastillodon before I get the charges off. So just a quick point of coaching I wanted to highlight there as well. But back to the Trollhammer Torpedoes themselves, what do they offer you for the Dwarfs that's so essential? The main thing is insane anti-large armor-piercing burst damage at a short range. So we're going to get in close, and as they line up on these Bastillodons, which you can see I am targeting them from a targeting priority standpoint. I do need to get rid of the mass there, and look at the burst damage. You can see the HP bar up there already going down significantly. There's 21 models here, and they have significant armor piercing and explosive damage. I guess the explosive damage isn't that much, but tons of armor piercing, and 24 bonus versus large as well. So they've just shredded this Bastillodon basically instantly. Almost all of that damage came exclusively from them. So pretty incredible stuff, but Zach Waite's push is definitely on. He's got a Manticore summon active, so I'm going to start focusing that with various things here. Gyro Bomber relatively safe at this point, as I've been able to mostly pressure these Pterodons away with the cannon. Yeah, Feral Manticore, not sure exactly what the targeting is there, but zooming back in, Grombrindle's going to pop his smoke bomb here because I do need to keep these Trollhammer Torpedoes online, and that's one thing that's very important. I've got them in kind of a dense formation here, which does mean they're going to be more vulnerable to charges just like that. The Manticore now sweeps down in an enrage and gets a good hold of them, tying them down, doing a lot of damage. It's 15 models still. Grombrindle has no fear has been popped to try and make sure they don't rout, but the biggest thing is to just extricate them, kind of like Way Watchers. In a way, if you can get them out of combat and keep them safe, they will absolutely win you the game. They have taken quite a bit of damage, though, so despite the balance of power being slightly in my favor, I'm a little nervous. There's still a lot of Kroxigors left. The Kroxigor Ancient also still relatively healthy as well, so going to keep the Engineer focused. Thought on him. It looks like actually still trying to take out that, Manticore there, but anyway. Oh, geez. Whoops. Messing up my mouse settings. My apologies, guys. Anyway, yeah, if we take a look back here, the Slayers are fighting. You can see the Skinks are kind of chasing the Miners here, routing them off, getting into those Corlers, but I have managed to secure mostly the Iron Drakes here, finally back into a position to keep firing, keep taking out those high-value targets. Another Manticore summon going to be popped here, and that does draw the balance of power back towards even. As more and more of my ranged units start to get taken out, you can see the cannon now getting shut down by Bastillodon. I am coming through with a nice bombing run here. He responds with a beautiful Amber Spear, side-shotting through the Longbeards and the Dragonback Slayers there. Great job by that little Skink Priest with a little skill play there. But the problem here is that my engineer just being focused on the Kroxgor Ancient, also Grombrindal's got a few decent melee engagements against him. It could potentially lead to some leadership issues for the Lizardmen in the late game. Beautiful splash attack there, and oh, look at that! Trollhammer Torpedoes raining in now. It doesn't take many to make contact, and that's why even in the late game, a handful of these guys can still be a major problem to deal with. They're going to do a little bit of potential friendly splash to these Quarrelers here, but, you know, it's all fine. Definitely will hit some of those Saurus as well. Brutal stuff. Just that damage raining in is able to rout the Kroxgor Ancient, and now leadership issues are going to start to become more and more real. Pterodon swooping down, trying to get at these guys, and that's kind of another reason why I was prioritizing the Pterodons there, although I have been able to use up all the ammunition on the Gyro Bombers, so that in and of itself probably paid for itself. Actually, it hasn't even got an XP chevron yet, interestingly enough, so perhaps didn't even pay for itself, but it's all good at the end of the day. Dragonback Slayers, no, rather Dwarf Warriors here. Going to be moving in. Trollhammer Torpedoes still surviving for the time being. That heavy armor certainly helps. Their combat stats aren't great, but not terrible at the end of the day. Actually, 28 melee defense with the XP chevron. It's not bad considering they're, you know, it's a squishy weapon team skirmish unit, but they are very expensive. Really don't want them in combat. 125 armor is very good, but still, low HP, low model count means they are potentially very squishy. And I only had one of them here. Like I said in the beginning, you really honestly only need one in a lot of matchups, and if you have the right build and kind of built around it in the right way. See the Gyro Bomber charging down into melee there as the Trollhammers fire into the Saurus. Very fun stuff. Actually going after the Skink Priest there, it looks like. Saurus also enraged. But Kroxgor Ancient not going out without a fight. He's got his cold-blooded popped. Getting some good attacks here on the Gyro Bomber. The Bastiladon's also still a threat. Actually got quite a bit of HP left, so we're going to turn around and switch to that. It's enraged, so it can't come over and step on these Trollhammers. Got, yeah, Dragonback Slayer is also still chilling. The Dwarf Engineer as well. Master Engineer hasn't even used up half of his ammo yet, which is pretty impressive, all things considered. Those guys can definitely do a lot of damage over the course of a long battle. Trollhammer's now up to a chevron and a half in terms of damage output, and just absolutely covered head to toe in blood. Have to say, probably one of the coolest looking dwarf units too. Like the whole heavy armor aesthetic with the weapons. Personally, I think purely in terms of aesthetic, the Fire Drakes are better. But in terms of meta and kind of gameplay, the Trollhammer Torpedoes are absolutely the better variant. And one of the best weapons team units in the game. I don't know if they're necessarily the best weapons team in the game. I'll talk about which one I think is best in another video, but probably has something to do with rats. Anyway, that's victory for myself. Very well played to Zach Waite, aka Red Salamander, who is, of course, the host of Organized Practices on the Noobhammer Discord. Definitely go check it out. If you guys are new to the game, looking to get into multiplayer and maybe transition from campaign to that, that's a great place to do so. Very fun game. It's, again, not a faction I play super often, but I feel the build more or less was executed kind of how I envisioned. Gyro Bomber maybe didn't do as much work as I initially thought it did when I had played this, but yeah, Slayer's mopping up, Dragonback Slayer's 97 kills, very good stuff. The Trollhammer Torpedoes taking out both of his Bastiladons, doing a ton of damage to the Kroxgor Ancient and these other units around, and just a lot of it was me trying to protect them as well, which is something that you will need to prioritize your micro on for Dwarfs. A lot of people kind of have perception of Dwarfs as a low micro faction, and while that's kind of true in some senses, it's also not true in other senses. You definitely have to keep target priority in mind and make sure you're protecting, you know, the appropriate units that you need, because your infantry largely lacks damage output. We got some okay volleys with the blasting charges. You can see even still though, like I said, the Saurus took a lot of HP damage, but not actually that many kills from the blasting charges. So that was fine. Skink Priest though, great job by Zach there with the between the Amber Spears and the Manticore. If it counted the Manticores on top of it, I'd be curious. It's got probably well over 100 kills between the two Manticores plus the Amber Spears in terms of damage output, so very nicely done considering he's a little skink boy on foot. Kroxgor Ancient also awesome in this matchup, definitely like that pick. yeah, build overall is pretty solid. Like I said, maybe just leading a little bit with the Bastildons, and likewise, I don't know, taking Rippers is super risky in this matchup because they're so squishy, but they can, even if you get like a Fire and Forget, take out a unit of Trollhammer Torpedoes, although they are, I think, maybe a little bit more expensive, maybe about the same price. I honestly forget. You can just take out the Trollhammers, though. These other units will be a lot safer and able to just kind of roll over the Dwarfs in terms of mass kind of target, I guess, mass target saturation. Anyway, let's go ahead and just finish up on Trollhammers. I've been seeing more and more Dwarf players recently not take Trollhammers, and I think that's definitely a mistake. Pretty much every single matchup, there's going to be at least a target or two, probably a multitude of targets that you'll want to shoot at with these Trollhammer Torpedoes. You definitely got to keep your targeting priority in mind. That being said, 1, 2 maybe is good. 3, even 4, up to 4 is really tough to protect. At that point, it's quite a bit of spend, but only 900 points, I say only, it's on par with a lot of other elite kind of armor-piercing missiles. Talked about Waywatchers already. Obviously, the range is not really comparable, but in terms of DPS, like, I would say Trollhammers might even have more burst against large targets if they connect with all their missiles. Waywatchers are very accurate, but at the end of the day actually don't do that much damage per shot. 20 pure AP, though, which is pretty crazy, in 45 models. Not really the most comparable units, though. It's interesting. For the weapons teams, like, there are a few of them that kind of compare directly to each other, like Giselles and Deck Gunners, but none of them really compare. I mean, you've got, like, for the fire variant of Iron Drakes, rather, you've got, like, the Warp Fire Throwers, right? And for these guys, I mean, kind of, I guess, maybe you could consider some of the Skaven weapons teams to be comparable. Globes, I guess, are short range, kind of mass DPS, either the Death Globes or the Poison Globes. I guess the Death Globes being, like, pure AP damage are kind of comparable. Although, interestingly enough, I think they probably have... I'd have to actually, like, calculate out the math to see which one of these guys has higher DPS. Against large targets, I'd say the Trollhammers probably, for sure, have more damage. But against just regular infantry targets, they probably have pretty close to the same DPS. Although I think the Death Globes have a better explosion profile. Yeah, more of their damage is on their explosion, whereas the Trollhammers, more of the damage is on the missile itself. It's a little bit more focused. So it's not as good against infantry then in that case. But they are kind of comparable units, you know, close range, just super high burst damage, about the same cost as well. Yeah. Trollhammer Torpedoes, slightly longer range, slightly higher armor. They have less HP, just barely. But a much better leadership, which is a pretty big factor in, like, in that game. I don't think that they rout even once. I don't think so. Maybe they might have without that Grombrindal has no fear, but regardless, having that extra leadership definitely helps because you can reposition them even while they're taking damage, and they won't just run away like these Death Globes might. And again, the melee stats, in addition to the better armor, means they are just kind of more sustainable. 11 melee defense is actually pretty substantial. So against kind of lower tier light cavalry, like if you think about, say, we'll pull up Greenskins, good example, pretty good grudge matchup. Like, their light cavalry really doesn't have the attack stats to challenge. I mean, they'll do a tiny bit of damage on the charge, but given the lack of AP and kind of samey combat stats, the Trollhammer Torpedoes actually, you still don't want them fighting in melee, obviously, but they're not going to take a lot of damage very quickly. That means you will have time to reposition as long as you notice, you know, they're being attacked and you have the tools to maybe screen them out. Yeah, very, very essential. So all you Dwarf players, take note. You should be taking Iron Drakes and prioritize them on enemy high-value large units. So yeah, thank you very much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed. If you like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification. Every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.